Hi, I'm Melanie Conklin, the author of Counting Time and more recently, Every Missing Piece. And in this video, I want to talk about my revision process. I often have students and other writers ask me what my revision process is. How do I take a draft of a story and then change it and improve it to be a better draft? How do I take a rough draft to a second draft? So I'm going to show you how I do that. It's important to note that everyone's revision process is different. What's critical is that you identify what works for you. So I love seeing other writers' processes. It is so fascinating to me. It's definitely a little bit of trial and error to figure out what you like the best. But I'm going to show you what I do in case it's something that might help you. So usually whenever I'm going to revise a draft of a story, I have some input that I am using to guide my choices. Often that is an edit letter. So when you submit a draft to an editor, they read it and they write up their thoughts in an edit letter, which can be short or long. So far I've had 15-page single-spaced edit letters, and I've also had 2-page edit letters. You never know what's coming your way. So I might be revising from an edit letter. I might also be revising from feedback from a beta reader or an expert reader. Usually when I'm going to revise a story, I have several different people's input. And so the first thing I need to do is break down their input. So this is not an edit letter, but I've broken this to-do list down the same way that I would for an edit letter. So an edit letter's got a lot of writing usually, and I like to read it a few times, let it sink into my brain as much as possible. And then I'll start breaking it down into items. The easiest way for me to take a big amount of information and make it more approachable is to make a list. So I start highlighting parts, and then I give them numbers. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and I just keep going. And for some edit letters, I might identify 45 different things that I need to work on. Or they might be 3 big things that have subsections. But that's the first thing I do. And I love using markers because I'm very visual, and it helps me see what I need to do and what the key parts of those things are, to use those colors. It's also fun, and it's nice to have a little fun sometimes when you're working. So that's the first thing I do is I take that edit letter or beta reader feedback and I break it down and make a list. Once I have my list, it is time for me to go to my notebook. So for each project, I have a notebook. This is the notebook that I used for my Counting Time revisions way back in the day. And I will take my list and I put it in the notebook. I don't even start thinking about answers yet. I just make a list and I put it in my notebook. And I write down the most important parts of the feedback. The parts of the feedback that I agree with. Sometimes you don't agree with all of the feedback. So I make this list. And then once I have that list complete, I go to a new page in my notebook and I take the first item. Here was feedback on the central conflict in the story. And I take a page and I write central conflict at the top and I just think. And I let myself think for as many pages as I need to. Sometimes I have those answers pretty quickly and I know what I want to do. Like this is only 1 page. Sometimes I don't and I have to come back to them many times. But this way I go item by item through my list. I brainstorm possibilities. And usually by the time I get all the way through the list, I kind of have figured out a bunch of things because the pieces of a story all work together. So sometimes you'll figure out item number 14 and all of a sudden you know what to do on item number 2 and item number 3. So I try not to worry about having the answer when I'm brainstorming. Instead, I just try to think of alternatives, possibilities, and give my subconscious the space and time to figure out what it wants to do. So once I have all that information broken out in my project notebook, I take my draft and I print it out and I put it in a 3-ring binder. For me, this is the easier way to work because I'm visual and I like something physical that I can flip through. So I print that draft out, I put it in my notebook, and I start working. So what I do is work from front to back, and I take a pass where I only work on the pages. And as I move through the pages, I start making edits and adding Post-it notes that reflect the things I thought about in my notebook. Sometimes in my notebook, I'll even go ahead and jot things down on a Post-it note so that when I get to that part, I can just peel it out of my notebook and slap it on the manuscript page. Some pages, get a lot of love. Other pages go relatively unchanged. But I will work my way through that whole document, use Post-it notes, use handwritten notes, use color coding to figure out and transfer and decide on some of those solutions that I worked on in my notebook. Usually by the time I get to the end of the manuscript, I know what I want to do at the beginning of the manuscript. So it's a similar process. I'm very tedious and routine in my revision, but I find that giving myself that organized step-by-step process always leads me to answers. So that's what I do. Once I've gone all the way through the book in my physical notebook, that's when I open up the computer document and I go back to the beginning and I start making changes. And usually by then, I'm very confident with what I want to do because I've already thought about it several times. And I need that confidence. Your process might not be that detailed or that involved. It can be whatever works for you. But maybe if you're trying to find some solutions, some of these things might help you out. I'll see you in the next video.